and a resilient planet. Today we are joined by a number of distinguished speakers from governments and MEA secretariats. And after their interventions, we will have a short Q&A where we welcome your questions to the panelists. The purpose of today's event is to highlight the vital role of ecological connectivity and migratory species in climate change mitigation and adaptation, in biodiversity conservation, and in sustainable development, and how fostering synergies between environmental conventions and, importantly, harmonizing actions can increase efficiencies and, most importantly, increase impact across a multiple range of MEAs. We will be hearing from our speakers today about practical examples of nature-based solutions that can maintain or enhance connectivity and ecosystem integrity at scale, particularly in flyways and wetland ecosystems. Through showcasing of these examples, we want to build support for integrated action under the MEAs, such as the Convention on Wetlands, the CMS, the CBD, the UNCCD, as well as UNEA resolutions on ecological connectivity and synergies. We truly believe that our best chance of success is by supporting parties to align their efforts to achieve multiple objectives across the conventions through harmonized action at local and national level. We truly believe that ecological connectivity is a critical action towards this. So with that, it is my pleasure to invite our opening speakers. Firstly, we'll hear from Ms. Amy Frankel, Executive Secretary of the CMS. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Welcome to all. It's wonderful to be here. This is definitely one of my favorite topics, so I'm in my happy place because this topic is something that I learned about when I came to CMS, and you'll see in a minute how it's really grown, I think, into this like ballooning concept around the world in terms of conservation policy. CMS, the Convention on Migratory Species, we defined it as ecological connectivity as unimpeded movement of species, connected habitats without hindrance, and the flow of natural processes that sustain Earth. So it's essentially about movement. And of course, for migratory species, ecological connectivity is essential because they rely on a network of specialized sites throughout their lifetimes for breeding, for feeding, for stopover and resting. But what we're learning more and more, and this is why I think there's such uptake of this concept, is it's a policy approach that is vital for well-functioning ecosystems that support biodiversity, climate change resilience and mitigation, and human well-being. So last year at our COP14, we launched this report, The State of the World's Migratory Species, and in fact, UNEP WCMC was the one that worked with us to produce this incredible report. So I welcome you to go on our website. It's free in English, French, and Spanish. And it found, of course, that ecological connectivity is absolutely vital for our species' survival, but also that 3 out of 4 of the species listed on CMS are having impacts from habitat loss and fragmentation. So we worked very hard to raise up this issue, and the first place we went, of course, was the CBD. And the CBD was leading the negotiations of the new Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and we're very happy to say that connectivity has now been embedded in Goal A, so the goal itself of the KMGBF, it's implicit in Target 1 on spatial planning, it's in Target 2 explicitly on restoration, it's in Target 3 about protected areas, and it's in Target 12, which is about cities, and how cities and nature in cities also needs to be connected. So we're really glad that that's there, and I think that's what's helped raise up awareness at the national government level that this is really important policy that can't be ignored anymore, because what the IPBES 2019 global report found is that there were some words before in different policy agreements, but it has not been implemented. So In order to contribute to helping make sure that this time we actually do see implementation at the national level and at the regional and international level, at our last COP, we also launched what's called the Global Partnership on Ecological Connectivity. And we did this little silly thing, as you see, with holding hands, but that was to show how we're connected. And this is a very diverse group of people, including we have, of course, Musanda here from the head of the Wetlands Convention. We have the CBD is now a partner, the UNCCD is a partner, IUCN, WWF, BirdLife, ICLEI on cities. So this is a concept that, as I said, and the World Bank and others. So people are realizing that this very simple concept is vital for the work that they do. It makes sense because essentially the idea is that islands of biodiversity, if we have that model of a protected area, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for species, and it doesn't work for biodiversity and well-functioning of ecosystems. It also doesn't work for climate change, because you need well-functioning ecosystems to help mitigate climate change and also for climate change resilience. So this is, it's not a new idea, but this is the way political policy ideas happen in our worlds, is sometimes the opportunity is there and then now it's taking off. So we launched this at our COP, and then at the IUCN World Conservation Congress that was just held in September, we had our first partners meeting, and we kind of launched phase 2, which is now to operationalize. We have set up priorities. I should show you the next slide. The 4 areas that we're focusing on include, first, looking at data gaps. Do we know what are the most important habitats for species and for ecosystem functioning? We need to map that. And we also, that's very vital for all the institutions that lend money, the World Bank and others around the world, because they have safeguards in their policies that say we should not put infrastructure in these places if it harms biodiversity. We need to address that. But if you don't know that that area is vital for migratory species, then you won't comply with your own policy. So we're really getting interested in this data piece. The second point is on policy and legislation. Do countries have what they need at the national level to ensure that when you do spatial planning, you're planning your infrastructure, your roads, your dams, etc., are you thinking about this? How is it going to impact natural systems? The third is the on the ground. There are experts in this issue. There are people that can work with governments that can say, here's how you can do it. Here's how you can have a beautiful new road, but don't damage your nature. You can have both, but you have to be smart. And lastly, doing the outreach and communication. So there's lots of work to be done. We invite you to learn more about this and to join us. Just the last several points. One is, at the World Conservation Congress, we also launched a major new report with the UN CCD, the Convention to Combat Desertification, and they'll be having their next COP in Mongolia. So I'm glad we have the Minister of Environment from Mongolia here today. And that report said, if you're going to do restoration, you need to think about connectivity, because it will make sure your restoration efforts will succeed. If you don't do it, it's not going to be as successful. So we have a little catchphrase of restore to connect and connect to restore. The GEF, by the way, is also the GEF 9, which is now being negotiated. They have included landscape approaches, a Flyways approach, which they've never done. So they're understanding how important this is. And finally, the IPBES has agreed, the member states, to launch a new assessment on spatial planning and connectivity. So that's going to, so you can see all of these different places, all these very important actors are moving forward on this concept. Very last slide is our COP. So we're going to have our next COP in Brazil, in the city of Campo Grande, if you speak Spanish. And we're very also glad to have the lead representative from Brazil, head of the delegation here, to speak to you a bit about connectivity in Brazil. We welcome all of you to come. This will be a major topic along with many others. So stay tuned, come talk to me about the partnership if you're interested, and thanks again for all of you for being here.
Thank you very much, Amy. I would now like to welcome up Musonda Mumbo from the Executive Secretary of Ramsar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Good morning. Lovely to see you all here today. Shall I just move the slide? Oh, there we go. Right. Thank you very much for really coming to this really beautiful event, and thank you so much, Amy, and really for just highlighting. So perhaps let me start with a little nice quote. Rumi says, where water flows, life follows. So without water, we know that for sure our lives and the lives of other sentient creatures will be affected. And this is how we connect around the world. And what's exciting, and you talked about the issue of science, Amy, as the Convention on Wetlands, which is the oldest but also the most experienced multilateral environmental agreement, born in Ramsar in Iran and also turning 55 next year, we focus also on the science. The science matters, the data matters, but not just the regular or sort of, we also look at traditional knowledge systems, because these knowledge systems matter in connecting our information systems, matter in making sure that the data is shared everywhere. Recently, Amy and I came back from the Philippines at the meeting of the parties of the 12th meeting of the parties of the East Asia Australasian Flyway. Now that is one place where you could see the issue of synergies, science, intersecting, coming together, where countries came together to discuss, including Multilateral Development Bank. The government of the Philippines is the central pathway or the flyway of the East Asia Australasian Flyway system. It was phenomenal to experience. Even as they were experiencing a typhoon, in the middle of climate change and all these dynamics, you could see that these wetland systems, the intactness of these mangroves are also what spared a lot of the communities there. Now, when we talk about connectivity, the Convention on Wetlands, that is the very central and epitome of connectivity. We have well over 2,500 Ramsar sites or wetlands of international importance from north to south, east to west, connecting lives, connecting people, connecting species, flyways, landways, seaways, the absolute epitome of connectivity. Without these sites, we know for sure that obviously, work cannot go on, or the communities are not telling us the stories of what's happening, but also the policies and the very storytelling, the advocacy to really share insight. And so look out, World Wetlands Day next year, 2nd of February, check it out, it's wisdom. Traditional knowledge, indigenous peoples, the wisdom of our cultures, and the aspect of connectivity. But why do these wetland systems matter? Because they're also very central to multilateralism. And for us as a convention, we cannot not talk about multilateralism, because we met very recently, and thank you, I see Her Excellency the Minister is here, Minister Ndlovu from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe hosted our 15th session of the COP on the Victoria Falls, on that beautiful eighth wonder of the world, which not very long ago was pretty dry, because this part of Southern Africa has experienced the worst drought in 43 years. Even with these changes on climate change, these complexities, we came together. Amy was there, Astrid was there, many others, many of the heads of multilateral organizations came to Zimbabwe to really show support, because we also have a resolution on synergies. And how do we actually synergize and talk together within these multilateral systems efficiently and coherently? Because nature knows no borders. As was at your last COP in Samarkand, nature doesn't know, am I flying over Zimbabwe? Am I going over Uzbekistan, maybe Mongolia? No. Birds just go. Animals just go. But what is the state of our nature, where they're actually going? So, at our COP, we had well over 3,000 people participating. This COP has the most resolutions, 28 to be precise. And also, we had Wetland City accreditation. And having spoken about the Philippines, the Asia Development Bank also has a big initiative called the Regional Flyway Initiative that looks at flyways across cities in East Asia. And as you can imagine, these cities are pretty well built up. But in pretty much all of these cities are wetlands dotted all over the space, because birds want a pit stop where they can feed, where they can rest, where they can reconnect and continue on their journey. So thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to interacting with everyone here and really looking forward to the conversations that come on forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Masonda. Thank you very much, Amy, for those welcoming and framing remarks. We shall now move on to the panel discussion. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite all of our 6 panelists to come up, and they will be seated, and then I will ask them questions and they will respond. So I would like to welcome up Honorable Evelyn Ndlovu, Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife, President Convention on Wetlands, COP15 in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. His Excellency, Mr. Bhatbhata Bhatt, is the Minister of Environment and Climate Change of Mongolia. Ms. Carolina von der Weydt, Director General of the Environment, Department of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much. Ms. Lucia Motlong, Director, Information Management and Science Policy Interface, Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment of South Africa. Mr. Yohun Tang, Director General, Department of Nature and Ecosystem Conservation. Sir? And lastly, Ms. Astrid Schumacher, CBD Executive Secretary. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. The first 5 panelists are going to answer, or their interventions will respond to a specific guiding question. And that guiding question is, what concrete steps has your government taken to strengthen ecological connectivity, and how do these support both biodiversity and climate change objectives? Honourable Ndlovu, if you may. Would you like to stand here? Or would you like to sit?
Thank you so much. A very good morning to you all. I want to thank you all, those that managed to come to the Victoria Falls in July for COP15. We are very proud and happy that you participated in that conference. I would like to confirm that in recent years, Zimbabwe has taken a series of steps to reinforce connectivity across the landscape. The National Wetland Policy has been put in place, and it has been guiding us to make sure that we recognize the importance of the wetlands in our biodiversity and the ecosystems management. These areas that we resuscitate, they support our migratory birds that fly into our country once a year. And they fly out, especially when we've got droughts, they fly out. But these droughts and floods link habitats of these areas. We always find various species in these areas, and we have to come up with a policy in order to protect them. We have also strengthened integrated catchment management systems, improving cooperation between water authorities and local government and local communities to involve the local communities themselves in the management of the wetlands and the whole ecosystem that is around the wetlands. This work supports biodiversity and helps our country adopt to increasingly viable rainfall, and we then plan on how best we can manage our water systems. Remember, I want to remind this gathering that water is life, and without water we cannot survive. And that's why we put an importance in terms of water management, and our water policies are in place. We have also looked at our neighbors and decided to work as a community with neighbors. If you look at the rivers that flow from the highway in Zimbabwe, the center of Zimbabwe is a highway. It's a highland. And our water drip down the railway line system, down into the southwestern area, and the other rivers are flowing the other side of the railway line. And we have divided to work together with Zambia, Angola, Botswana, and Namibia to make sure that we manage the corridor, the Zambezi Valley corridor, where you were during COP15. We co-manage that system to make sure that it does not die. We manage. I'll give you a good example where I was born. There are rivers which come down from the railway highway, down towards Botswana, and flowing towards the border with Botswana and Zambia. Those rivers come out of our country as open rivers, but as they are going towards the desert, they go underground. And as they get underground, they accumulate water underground and supply water to the Chobe. And most tourists run to Botswana not knowing exactly where that water is coming from. It's all flowing from Zimbabwe. And we could have done irrigation systems and developed water boreholes and managed to, just after independence, we really wanted to do a green valley in that valley. We wanted to develop a green valley. But because of the interests of Botswana, we have not done that. We have decided to safeguard the wetland in Botswana. Even before we became very active in this convention, the Ramsar Convention, we decided to save the Botswana Chobe area so that at least the ecosystem survives there. And then the water can seep down again into the Zambezi River. And we have electricity coming from there, and we develop our respective countries. So the Zambezi and the Okavango systems operates together, making sure that the highlands of Angola flow into our own systems down right up to the Mozambican channel. And it moves into the Mozambique. So we've done extremely well. And we, of course, hosted the COP15. With all our hearts, we worked very hard to make sure that it becomes a success. And now, as the chairperson of the COP15, the Ramsar Convention, we are working with the Secretariat to make sure that we implement all the resolutions that came out of that. We have a booklet that we have produced, which we gave to our Secretariat. So we will try to post as much as possible on our website so that everybody can have access to that. And I want to also support the issue which was raised by our Secretariat, that the UN system, together with the Ramsar Convention, have to work together to make sure that wherever we can, we co-finance activities that save our wetlands and save the whole ecosystem, to make sure that we are there. And the Victoria Falls wetlands, we are happy that it was declared as a Ramsar site, a UN site. During that time, that were there. I thank you so much.
Honourable Minister, thank you so much for that. I've been privileged enough to travel to the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, the one that the Honourable Minister referred to, and it is truly a spectacular example of transboundary ecological connectivity and management and support, as well as wetland support. It's home to the largest contiguous elephant population in Africa, and truly something to see. So thank you very much for that example. And now I would welcome His Excellency Mr. Bhatpatar Bhatt, who will speak on his experiences from Mongolia.
Эрхэмсэг 80 татагтай эрхэм төлөөлөгчтэй, хүндэччтэй. Монгол улс өнөөдөр та бүхний өмнө нэгэн чухал мэдээлэлтэйгээр үргэлжлээд байна. Экологийн холбоос нутгийн асуудал нь хилцээрээс бодит хэрэгжилт рүү шилжих цаг болсон. Манай нүүдлийн соёл иргэншил байгаль их дэлхийн уялдаа холбоос түшиглсэн тул төсвөртэй байдаг. Хэрвээ энэхүү уялдаа холбоос тасарвал экосистем сулар зэрлэг амьтад хорогдон охирч хүн амын амьдралын чанарт оройтно. Өнөөдөр эдгээр уялдаа холбоо аюултай урттайгаар алдагдаж байна. Тухайлбал газар нутаг хуваагдалд орж нүүдлийн замнал нарийсаж усны албар газрууд улам их дарамтад төрцөр байна. Хэрвээ бид цаг тухайд нь арга хэмжээ авахгүй бол нөхөж баршгүй үр дагавартай нүүр тулна. Тиймээс улс орны зоримог шийдэмгий алхам хийх шаардлагатай.
Can I? Good. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Mongolia stands before you today with a clear message. Ecological connectivity must move from discussion to decisive action. Our nomadic civilization has survived for centuries because we understood one simple truth. Nature is only resilient when it remains connected. When those connections breaks, ecosystem weaken, species suffer, and communities face the consequences. Today, those connections are being lost at alarming pace. Landscapes are fragmenting, migratory pathways are shrinking, and watersheds are undergoing stress. Without timely intervention, we risk irreversible damage. We must shift from incremental progress to bold, coordinated steps.
Төсвөртэй эвдлийн төлөө доктортой шийдлүүдийг ахиулах сэдвийн өрөөнд зохион байгуулагдаж буй Нүүбийн байгаль орчны ассамблеийн 7 дугаар жуулганы үеэр Монгол улс экологийн холбоосыг дэлхийн хэмжээнд илүү өндөр түвшинд авч үзэхийг уриалж байгаа. Учир нь экологийн холбоос нь уур амьсгалын бодлого, биологийн олон янз байдлын хамгаалал, доктортой хөгжлийн салбар бас харин гол тулгуур асуудал байх ёстой. Монгол улс холбоос нутгийн асуудлыг үндэсний бодлого, газрын нэгдсэн менежментэд бүрэн тусгаж ажиллаж байна. Бид бэлчээр нутаг, ус, намгарах газар, нутгийг нөхөн сэргээх, нүүдлийн замыг хамгаалах, шинжлэх ухаан болон уламжлалт мэдлэг тулгуурлан улс хоорондын хамтын ажиллагааг бэхжүүлэх чиглэлээр бодиттой ажлууд хийж байна. Манай улсын мандат олон жилийн түүхтэй юм а. 1992 онд Монгол улс дэлхийд анх удаа 30 зорилгыг дэмжиж зарласан улс бөгөөд энэхүү мандатыг бид өнөөдөр ч үргэлжлүүлж байна. Мөн манай үндэсний тодорхойлсон хувь 3 дэх шинжилсэн зорилтын хүрээнд 2035 он гэхэд хүлэмжийн ялгарлыг 30.3%-аар бууруулах зорилт тавьсан уур амьсгалын амбиц, биологийн олон янз байдал, газрын дөрөлтийн эсрэг үйл ажиллагааг уялдуулсан бодит амлалтуулсан.
As we convene at UNEA 700 theme of advancing sustainable solution for resilient planet, Mongolia calls for evaluated global action on connectivity. Connectivity must stand as a core pillar of climate policy, biodiversity conservation, and it should be not secondary priority for sustainable development. Mongolia is taking action. We are embedding ecological connectivity across national policy and land management. We are restoring rangelands, wetlands, peatlands, protecting migratory routes, and strengthening transboundary collaboration guided by science and traditional knowledge. Our leadership is long-standing. In 1992, Mongolia became the first nation to champion on protected area vision 3030, with a role we proudly continue as of today. Under our enhanced NDC3, we have committed to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 30.3%, a reduction by 2035, which fully aligns climate ambition climate ambition, and biodiversity and land restoration.
Түүнчлэн Монгол улс нүүбийн цөлжилтөд тэмцэх тухай конвенцийн 17 дугаар баг хурлыг даргалахаар болсон бөгөөд хурлын үеэр 3 санаачлагыг дэвшүүлэн бодит үр дүнд хүрэхээр ажиллаж байна. Үүнд бэлчээрийн дэргүүлэх санаачлага, бэлчээрийн экосистем ба нүүдлийн туруутай амьтдыг хамгаалах, гандуу бүсийн төсвөрлөх чадварыг нэмэгдүүлэхэд ус ба газрын менежментийг хүүлэн дэмжих санаачлага, ус намгарах газар, гол мөрөн, сав газрын гидрологийн холбоосыг хангах замаар уур амьсгалын өөрчлөлтийн дасан зохицлыг сайжруулах, байгальд суурилсан шийдэл бүхий дэд үдэц хөгжлийн төслүүд нь газар нутгийн хуваагдах бас холбоосод чиглэсэн байх төлөвлөлтийг дэмжих санаачлагууд орно. Мөн Монгол улс 2025-аас 29 оны ЮНЕСКОгийн дэлхийн өвийн хооронд сонгогдсон нэр төрийн өрийг бөгөөд дэлхийн биологийн олон янз байдлыг хамгаалах чиглэл манай үүрэг хариуцлага улам баттгаж буй юм а.
As a host country for the 17th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UNCCD, Mongolia is advancing initiatives designed to deliver real impact on the topic that we are discussing today. The Rangeland Flagship Initiative is strengthening and safeguarding grassland and iconic ungulate migration species. The integrated water and land management, which secures hydrological connectivity for wetlands, peatlands, rivers, and climate adaptation. Nature-based infrastructure solution to ensure development concept and connectivities rather than fragmented ecosystems. Also, we are proud to inform that Mongolia also honored to be elected to the World Heritage Committee from 2025 to 2029, which we will take our utmost effort and strengthen our commitment to the global heritage and biodiversity protection.
Эрхэм төлөөлөгчдөө бид та бүхнийг бас нэгэн асуудалд онцгойлон анхаарлаа хандуулахыг хүсэж байна. Зэрлэг амтан ба ургамлын аймгийн орсон зүйлийг олон улсын хэмжээнд худалдаалах тухай конвенцийн 20 дугаар баг хурлын үеэр бүхэнгийн экспортын Ecological холбоотой яриа хилцэн шинжлэх ухаан суурилсан шийдвэр гаргалт өрчлөн сэргийлэх зарчмын чухлыг дахин бидэнд сануулсан. Бүхэн бол манай улс нутгийн бэлэг тэмдэг болсон нүүдлийн амьтан бөгөөд нөхөн сэргээх асуудал нь эмзэг хэвээр байна. Монгол улс бүс нутгийн тогтвортой популяцийн сэргээлт, урт хугацааны хамгаалалт нийцсэн менежментийн шийдвэр гаргахын тулд хамтын ажиллагаа нээлттэй хэлцээг үргэлжлүүлэхийг уриалж байна. Холбоос бол манай дэлхийн амьдралын суурь ойлголт юм. Холбоосыг бид хамгаалж чадахгүй бол уур амьсгалын өөрчлөлт, биологийн олон янз байдлын зорилтууд, нийгмийн сайн сайхан байдлын суурь нөхцөлийг бүрдүүлэх боломжгүй болно. Рамсарын конвенц, зэрлэг амьтан нүүдлийн зүйлүүдийг хамгаалах тухай конвенц, биологи олон янз байдлын тухай конвенц, уур амьсгалын өөрчлөлтийн нүүбийн суурь конвенц, цөлжилтийн конвенц болон дэлхийн өвийн конвенц зэрэг олон талд гэрээ байгууллагуудын орондын уялдаа холбоог бэхжүүлж байж бид хөрш бүс нутгуудын уялдсан байгальд суурилсан шийдлүүдийг бодит ажил болгож чадна. Монгол улс манлайлах, хамтран ажиллах, бодиттой алхам хийхэд бэлэн байна. Бид газар нутаг, байгаль, хүмүүсийн хоорондын холбоосыг сэргээж, улс орнуудын хоорондын хариуцлага, хамтын ажиллагааны гүүрийг бэхжүүлэхийг зорж байна. Бид хуваагдал бус холбоосыг хүсэл эрмэлзэл бус тодорхой үйлдэлийг сонгох ёстой. Дэлхийн нийтийн хамтын ажиллагаа үйлдэл хийх боломж нь хязгаарлагдмал хэдийч нээлттэй байна. Тиймээс бид хамтдаа хүн төрөлхтөн хөгжин дэвших боломжтой дэсвэртэй байгаль дэлхийн ирээдүйг зохицуулж чадна. Баярлалаа.
Colleagues, allow me to reflect on one particular concern. The recent discussion at conference of the 20th session of the Conference of the Parties of the CITES regarding zero export quota for Saiga antelope highlighted the importance of precautious and science-based decision-making for Mongolia. Saiga is an iconic migratory species of our region, and its recovery remains fragile. Mongolia encourages continued cooperation and collaboration and dialogue to ensure that management decisions to support long-term population stability and regional conservation benefits. Connectivity is the lifeline of our planet. If we fail to protect it, we undermine climate action, biodiversity goals, and the well-being of our societies. A strengthened cooperation among UNEA's Ramsar Convention, Convention on Migratory Species, Convention on Biological Diversity, Convention on Climate Change, Convention on desertification, and also the World Heritage Convention is essential to deliver integrated cross-border solutions for grounded nature. Mongolia stands ready to lead, partner, and act. Let us restore the connection and connectivity between landscape and people, between nations and shared responsibilities. Let us choose resilience over fragmentation and action over intention. Window for global action may seem narrow, but it is still open. Together we can secure a future where nature thrives and humanity prospers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I like very much your point on we have to move from discussion to action, and also recognize that as the host of the UNCCD COP in 2026, you may in fact have to leave a little early this afternoon to attend another event, so thank you very much. I would like to now invite up Mrs. Carolina von der Weydt, who will speak to us on the same question of what concrete steps has your government taken to strengthen ecological connectivity, and how do these support both biodiversity and climate change objectives? Thank you.
Thank you all, and first of all, thanks for the invitation for being here today. So Brazil is now facing the second challenge of hosting a COP. We just hosted the Belém COP, but now we're looking forward for the CMS COP next March. So let's hope everything will go smooth, and we manage to get to restore, to connect, and connect to restore. So answering the questions, so Brazil understands ecological connectivity as a development strategy, not only in an environmental one. For us, connectivity is inseparable from fighting against inequality, poverty, and hunger. If conservation does not improve lives, it will not endure. That is why Brazil treats connectivity as a tool to protect nature while advancing resilience, livelihoods, and food security. In practice, connectivity is built into Brazil's national policies. Our systems of protected areas is increasingly managed as an integrated network rather than isolated sites. Ecological corridors link forests, wetlands, river, coastal zones, marine areas across the Amazon, Cerrado, Atlantic Forest, and the Pantanal, connecting protected areas with indigenous territories and sustainable use landscapes. This is not only planning, it is implementation, as it was already mentioned here today. Through IBAMA, Brazil strengthens enforcement against deforestation, land conservation, and wildlife crimes in critical corridors. Through ICMBio, science-based management supports ecological integrity in protected areas. And also, of course, through our Ministry of the Environment, large-scale restoration reconnects degraded landscapes while creating employment and climate benefits. Wetlands deserve special attention. They are not secondary ecosystems. They are natural infrastructure regulating water, storing carbon, reducing disaster risks, and sustaining biodiversity. Brazil hosts the largest Ramsar surface in the world. Ramsar sites in Brazil are not symbolic designations. They are embedded in our protected area systems and supported by national law and institutions. This year, Brazil also reestablished its National Wetlands Committee, reflecting our convictions that wetlands governance must be inclusive and science-based, with indigenous people also and local communities. Migratory species are central to this approach. Flyways, wetlands, and forest corridors form the ecological highways of the planet. Protecting them is climate policy, biodiversity policy, and of course, development policy at the same time. Brazil also strongly supports coherence among multilateral frameworks, and this is a topic that was mentioned here today. So the decisions of CBD, Ramsar, CMS COPs have to be mutually reinforcing. Connectivity will not only be achieved if these conventions work together, as of course do ecosystems. But ambition alone is not enough. Connectivity has costs. Restoration costs, enforcement, community engagement requires stable, predictable resources. Many developing countries host world's most valuable ecosystems, and yet they lack the means of implementation to protect them at scale. This is a central issue Brazil will raise at CMS COP15. Financial mechanisms, technical cooperation, and capacity building must match political ambition, or connectivity will remain a promise without delivery. Hosting the CMS COP15 in Campo Grande, in the heart of the Pantanal, highlights this reality. Pantanal shows us the climate change, biodiversity loss, social vulnerability converge in the same landscapes. Droughts, wildfires, there are not abstract risks. They affect people, ecosystems, and economies together. In conclusion, connectivity is not just about species crossing borders. It is also about connecting ambition with finance, policy with implementation, and also global goals with local realities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carolina. Thanks, Honourable Minister. Your point on connectivity and conservation or development strategies, not just biodiversity strategies, are something that I think we all need to take on board going forward. I would now like to invite Ms. Lucia Motlong from South Africa to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Ms. de Kock. Honourable Ministers, to the Ramsar Convention Secretariat, the CMS Secretariat, the CBD, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to greet you all and really to appreciate the CMS and the Ramsar Convention Secretariats for inviting South Africa to share our experiences when it comes to the ecological connectivity. Just to highlight the importance of biodiversity in South Africa, we are one of the most biologically diverse countries in the world. We form part of the mega diverse countries, so biodiversity is really at the center of our topic, and we need to conserve and protect it by all means. Just to also mention that today, when it comes to Ramsar sites, we have designated about 31 Ramsar sites, and we are in the process of designating number 32. So this really shows the commitment that we have in terms of accomplishing our international obligations. And if I can also give you some information regarding the migratory species, our country receives more than 100 migratory species each and every year, and most of these species are waterbirds. They fly between South Africa and Europe and Asia, and also we have intra-African migrants moving seasonally within the continent. So it is very critical for us to make sure that our wetland ecosystems in particular are healthy, are well protected. Also to touch on our coastal ecosystem. Our coastal ecosystem is one of the important corridors for a number of marine species, including your whales, your dolphins. We also have the loggerhead and the leatherback sea turtles that travels miles across the oceans, mainly from the New Zealand or Australias, to nest in one of our most significant and beautiful Ramsar site, and also the World Heritage Site, the Isimangaliso Wetland Park. So it is very important for us to make sure that we protect our coastline. And also during the nesting period, that's where most of the people that are staying within the park, they get some benefits through tourism, and that boosts in terms of socio-economic benefits as well. In terms of research, we have very strong institutions that address research for wetlands, for biodiversity, etc. Our South African National Biodiversity Institute works very well, closely in collaboration with a number of research institutions and also the NGOs to make sure that our wetlands, our research, all our policies are informed by research. There is an initiative that is underway, just to touch, that the government is implementing together with the BirdLife South Africa. We are mapping key wetlands for migratory birds. that may qualify for Ramsar status or other form of protection such as the OECMs. So this work will not only be benefiting the CMS, but also the Ramsar Convention, and maybe in future it will assist us to achieve our GBF target 3 in terms of 30 by 30. So you can see 3 conventions already coming together in one initiative. Beyond research, South Africa invests in ecological corridors and nature-based solution. We have one of the most important initiative, which is a flagship project, the Eden to Ado Corridor Initiative. This is about 400-kilometer long conservation corridors, which connect 3 major protected areas: the Ado Elephant National Park, Bavianskloof Kloof Mega Reserve, the Garden Route National Park. This corridor, it links the fragmented habitats, enabling species such as your elephants, leopards, and the Cape Mountain zebra to move freely across the landscapes. This connectivity also reduces the genetic isolation, supports climate-driven range shifts, and sustains vital ecosystem processes like pollination and seed dispersal. Just also to affirm the colleague that South Africa is for multilateralism, and we make sure that we create synergies among all our MEAs. We, as the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, we have taken the initiative to establish the Multilateral Environmental Agreements Forum, where all the focal points of various MEAs, we formed this forum where we discuss all the critical issues, the cross-cutting issues, so that when we go to these platforms, we have common positions throughout and across all the multilateral environmental agreements that we are party to. So in closing, we will also be integrating this connectivity when we are updating our NB subs. So the synergies amongst the MEAs is at the forefront of our NB sub that will be updated and submitted soon before the next COP next year. So in my closing remarks, we know that working in silos is the business of the past. We believe in collaboration, partnership, inclusivity, and mainstreaming biodiversity across all the sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. As a South African, I'm both happy and also homesick to hear the examples you gave. I would now like to invite our final speaker on this particular question, Mr. Yuzhong Zhang, the Director General, Department of Nature and Ecosystem Conservation from China. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure to share with you what China is doing to connect nature. And before my introduction, let us think of it like this. If isolated nature reserves were separate islands, China is now building bridges between them so animals can move, plants can spread, and ecosystems can function as a whole. This is way more than just planting trees. We are stitching the landscape back together. Here is how we are doing it. First, building wildlife highways, ecological corridors. This is like creating animal crosswalks and overpasses. Special pathways are set up for flagship species like giant pandas, Siberian tigers, and armored leopards, so they can move safely between habitats. For example, in panda territory, corridors help different panda groups mix and avoid inbreeding. Second, mountain and water projects, fixing whole landscapes, and this project treats nature as one connected system. Forests, farms, lakes, grasslands, deserts, all together. Instead of just patching up symptoms, we restore whole areas to their natural function. Up north, the huge 3 North Shelter Belt project acts like a green Great Wall holding back deserts. In the northeast, we are restoring forests and wetlands for tigers and migrating birds. Down south and along coast, we revive mangroves, coral reefs, and fight rocky desertification. Over 50 big projects are already underway across the country. Third, national parks, unified protection. Before, different reserves were managed separately. Now, China is creating a unified national park system. Places like the source of 3 giant rivers, giant panda, and Siberian tiger parks protect entire ecosystems across regions inside these parks. We focus on reconnecting habitats, planting native trees, controlling grazing, and removing barriers, so wildlife has continuous space to live. Fourth, the red line, a strict no-entry zone. China has drawn an ecological protection red line, kind of like a high-voltage fence for nature. About 30% of China's land is inside it. And this also makes China has achieved its goal for the KMGBF, the 30-30 goal. Most important forests, wetlands, and biodiversity hotspots inside the red line, nature comes first. Forests and water are increasing, while construction is limited. It's a legal guarantee that key areas stay connected and intact. Fifth, regional team-ups. Like in neighboring provinces or cities, nature doesn't care about city or provincial borders. So in big urban areas, local governments are working together. For example, the capital of China, Beijing, and another neighboring city, Tianjin, and another neighboring province, Hebei, now share a cross-boundary river and lake chief system to manage waterways jointly. They also protect bird migration routes together. Because of this, places like Tianjin's Qilihai, this is a wetland, are seeing more bird species return. Sixth, last but not the least, China is trying to make contributions to the nature conservation of the world. As we all know, China initiated the Kunming Biodiversity Fund, and up to now we have sponsored about 29 projects, and this also covers the projects related with the migratory species. And for the detailed information we can share with you tomorrow afternoon. There will be a press conference about Kunming Fund tomorrow afternoon. And welcome to attend. All these efforts all these above efforts create a living, breathing network. Animals and plants get room to thrive. Furthermore, there is another huge benefit. This connected landscape works like a giant super carbon pump. Healthy, continuous ecosystems, forests, grasslands, wetlands absorb millions of tons of carbon dioxide every year. That's a natural boost to China's climate goals, hitting peak carbon before 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. In short, China is moving from protecting scattered patches of nature to actively weaving them back into a resilient, connected whole, good for wildlife, good for people, and good for the climate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention. I particularly liked your description of how China is stitching landscapes back together. And now I'd like to welcome our final speaker for the day, Ms. Astrid Schumacher, CBD Executive Secretary, who will speak to the question, ecological connectivity is a key element in many targets of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. How can this conservation approach help deliver on the KMGBF and its related climate goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I'll try and be fast so we have some time also for discussion afterwards and don't get blown away here. I think it's really important that we see the three conventions here coming together, the CMS, the Wetlands Convention, and the CBD, because we all have such a big stake in connectivity. Connectivity is about life and motion. It's the animals that cross borders, but also the genes that flows and the need for ecosystems to adapt. It is really the living fabric that allows us, and you've just said it, to stitch together, these individual protected and conserved landscapes into resilient landscapes that can together allow biodiversity to thrive. Now, in the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, therefore, connectivity is not some kind of afterthought. And Amy has already described quite in detail, and I just will repeat it quickly to sort of close the circle how important connectivity is for the framework. It is, of course, already in our goal A, so that needs to be achieved by 2050, which calls to maintain, enhance, restore the integrity and connectivity and resilience of ecosystems by 2050. But in order to then do that, this has been translated into several of our action targets by 2030, beginning with target 1 that emphasizes that spatial planning is also about connecting protected areas, wetlands and agriculture, lands and urban areas to reduce fragmentation. Target 2 about restoring degraded ecosystems needs to look at connectivity. Amy has mentioned target 12, that is maybe not so much on the radar screen of many people because that's about urban areas. It's one of the more difficult targets to achieve, but we also need to see in densely populated areas how we can achieve connectivity. And then, of course, there's target 3, our flagship target, the 30 by 30 target so many people have heard about. And so often that target seems to be just about achieving the numbers. And every time we say, no, it's not just about the number, it's about the quality of the lands that are protected and the seas. It is about the management, the inclusivity of the management, and it is about the connectivity of those areas. And why does that matter so much? And I think our colleague from Brazil has been very outspoken about that, because all of that is ultimately about resilience, certainly ecological resilience, but ecological resilience is necessary so that societies can thrive. Ecological resilience is about food security. It is about having peaceful societies and social stabilities and enabling economic development. And all of that is somehow linked to this little term connectivity, which is so important in all we do. Now, there is a need to accelerate. If we look at the efforts that are being done, up to today, only 8.52% of land is both protected and connected. And freshwater connectivity, as Musunda knows only too well, is even more complex because it requires vertical, longitudinal, and lateral linkages, and that is not easy to do. So that also means we as conventions need to come together in our capacity building to try and enable countries to move forward through this complexity and enable to set up the connections that sustain the species, the ecological processes, and the healthy ecosystems for the benefit of all of us. And of course, connectivity is also a climate solution. We just heard that from China. COP decision 1622, that's CBD COP, our last COP in Cali, Colombia, underscored that ecological corridors are vital for species migration and adaptation under accelerating climate change. And we know that well-connected ecosystems can regulate climate through carbon storage, maintaining soil health, and safeguarding water cycles. So all of this is a climate solution. And we also must remember, because it's very often a bit off the radar screen, that well-connected ecosystems are also about health. From a health perspective, intact, connected systems can reduce the risk of disease emergence, and again, they protect ecosystem services. Now, in all of that, my last minute I want to spend on the role of the CBD and how the CBD can then interact together with CMS and the Wetlands Convention. Because connectivity is complex. I've said it before. It must be planned wisely. Poorly designed corridors can create pathways for invasive alien species. That is not the idea. So we need, and that would have serious ecological and economic consequences. So it is important that invasive alien species can be fully integrated into risk assessment when we do connectivity planning. In the CBD, we have some promising initiatives and strong mandates: the program of work on protected areas, the Peace and Biodiversity Dialogue Initiative funded by the Republic of Korea, and the Global Partnership on Ecological Connectivity. All of these are things we need to do together, because so often the national targets that we see still lack systematic approaches, and again, not because people don't want to, but because it is complex and because we need to step up and exchange more experience of how that can be done and where the success stories are. And maybe the last and best contribution that the CBD can make in the immediate future, at COP17 in Armenia, in Yerevan, just 10 months from now, we will do our first global review of the Global Biodiversity Framework's implementation. So we take stock of how far we got and how far we still have to move, and where are those areas where we have to put more attention. And I think we will also want to focus on those sweet spots where one intervention can enable us to reach a plurality of targets across conventions and across social and economic challenges. So we would like this global review to also be the review of the other conventions, that their contributions, and thank you very much, they are being made to us now in the process of us writing a global report, can be reflected so that the conclusions that are being drawn act as a collective engine for all the biodiversity conventions and other related conventions such as Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm to move forward. So in all of that, in conclusion, ecological connectivity is for us how we make the 30 by 30 ambition both real and impactful and resilient. It is how we build landscapes and seascapes that can absorb climate shocks and sustain life. And we firmly believe that if we act together across conventions, across societies, across ministries with purpose, guided by science and grounded in equity, we will deliver on biodiversity and climate goals and on all the other societal goals that we have. It remains possible, but we need to do more, and we need to do it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Astrid. That was a very powerful concluding speech. I think your point about connectivity as a means to effectiveness and quality of Target 3 is often something that's not paid attention to. They think about protected areas as islands, which of course is not terribly effective. And also, to sum up what everybody has said here quite clearly through their examples, is that connectivity is a means to supporting biodiversity goals, climate goals, and also very importantly, development goals. So with that, I'd like to thank our panelists and also invite a few quick questions from the floor. We are a little tight on time, but there is a question over there. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for this great panel. My name is Johanna Varner. I'm here on behalf of the Citizen Science Global Partnership. And I was wondering if the panel would mind commenting a little bit on how citizen science or crowdsourced science or engaging local communities might be able to complement or expand or enhance the kinds of monitoring efforts that you're already doing on connectivity. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Masonda to address that. Masonda, the mic is coming to you. And if anybody from the panel would like to compliment?
Yeah, no, thank you so very much for that question. Actually, as a convention, and I'll give the example from China, thank you very much for the work that you're doing there. The Flyway system from South Korea to China, most of the data has been collected as a result of citizen science. When I went to Incheon, we were actually celebrating the birthdays of the black-faced spoonbill, just before they go south to Shenzhen and also to Maipo within the Funshan Bay. Now, what's fascinating, what's extremely fascinating for us is that we cannot afford to ignore citizen science, because this witnessing, this experiencing, and this gathering of information on a consistent basis matters. And also it informs our national wetland inventories as a convention, which then feeds into our joint work plan with the CBD, which we have, feeds into our joint work with the CMS, particularly on flyway issues, because they have a dedicated working group on flyways. We have a resolution on flyways. So the connectivity, closing this loop, is dependent on people.
Great, thank you, Masonda. Thank you very much. We have time for one final question before I ask for closing remarks. Over there, please. Thank you. And please indicate to whom the question is addressed.
Thank you. It's probably mostly for the CBD, but would love to hear if anyone else in the panel has thoughts on this. It has been mentioned several times, like the role of traditional knowledge, especially I imagine like indigenous peoples, but in general local communities. So I would like if this has like specific aspects that have been already addressed or are being designed within the strategies that you're planning and the visions that you are consolidating right now. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Astrid?
Yeah, I kick it off, but I'm sure my colleagues will want to compliment, and thanks for the question. I think we cannot overemphasize the importance of traditional knowledge in looking at connectivity issues. And one of the reasons why within the CBD we are working so hard to elevate the role of indigenous peoples and local communities is not just because they're rights holders and they're stewards of natures and they need to be respected as such, but also because there's so much wisdom, and Musunda mentioned that word in the beginning, so much wisdom that they're bringing to the debate that we really would like to leverage for achieving the goals of our convention. And when we come to the question of connectivity and the question of looking at or not artificially separating phenomena into this is a biodiversity crisis and this is a climate crisis and this is yet another crisis because it is in another convention. I think that is what we get so strongly when we converse with indigenous peoples and local communities, because they experience the crisis as what it is, one crisis for the planet which requires one holistic answer. So within our convention we try and elevate the voices of local communities, but also trying to create greater respect for their rights. And of course, in the designation of protected areas and when we restore landscapes, it is very important that indigenous peoples and local communities are a full part of the debate, are participating in impact assessments, that their rights are respected. So we have recently, at COP16 in Cali, created a new subsidiary body on Article 8J, that is the article in our convention that deals with indigenous peoples and local communities and their contributions and their traditional knowledge. And that body is there for us to be able to not just talk about indigenous peoples, but better talk with indigenous peoples. And one of the first things that this body has been looking at when it met for the first time in Panama just 2 months ago is guidance precisely on how the rights of indigenous peoples and local communities need to be integrated when we designate protected areas, when we talk about restoration of landscapes. So there's a lot happening in the CBD, but it's not happening just for the CBD's sake. It is happening, I think, as guidance across conventions how this work needs to be done.
Astrid, thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, we don't have any further time for questions or comments on that very interesting topic. I'm going to invite Amy and Masonda to come up and make their closing remarks. Thank you.
I think I'm going to go first so that Amy can close. This has been so amazing and really inspiring, because this is really just the very definition of synergies, but the very definition of connectivity as well. So I really want to encourage everyone as you go back or wherever you're working, we have to remember, and rightly, as Astrid has mentioned, we do these artificial divisions of, this national park over here and all of this, the people over there. It is so woven and beautifully knit together that we cannot afford to be doing this division. So I'm really excited to be a part of this beautiful journey that Amy started in Samarkand, and we're us holding hands and looking forward to these next phases of work, and also to Campo Grande. Thank you.
First of all, my heart feels very full, and I want to say thank you to all of the incredible speakers today, and we're honored by your presence. But really, your words were incredible, and I want to write them all down because I'm happy, because I see how this concept is really been integrated into the policies and the thinking that's going on all around the world. And I wanted to link my final remarks to the question about citizen science, actually, and local communities and indigenous peoples, because even though we're at the UN level, we're working at the international sphere, especially in the work that I do with the Convention on Migratory Species. At Ramsar, we're on the ground looking at sites, looking at what connects people. There's always local people involved. And, there was this amazing story that Musanda and I learned in the Philippines when we were there about this older couple that they were professionals in whatever they did, and they retired, but they loved birds. And they were trying to make change because this one kind of bird was being shot and hunted illegally. And they did it from the ground up. They worked with the community, they worked with the mayor, they had no money, and they said they used their pension money to make this happen. And they made change. And the story was so compelling. And you think about people like that all along the Flyway, across countries. So the connectivity is not just about ecological connectivity, it is about people. And that's what's it's such a wonderful topic to work on, because it really does connect human beings in their communities across national borders. And so I invite again all of you to get connected and join us in this work, and thank you so much for all of you, and also to our wonderful moderator, Melissa from the UNEP-WC. Thanks so much, and by the way, to Yerka and my colleagues for really helping to put this together. Thanks.